Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Defense Forces Academy, and I hope that all of you are very good and all doing good everywhere, wherever you are. So, let's start with today's class without wasting any time. And if you guys have any questions, please let me know in the chat box uh, from the previous class or anything you want to ask. So, yesterday we discussed about federalism and its features. And in continuation to that, today I want to finish this chapter. So that is why I'm taking this class because generally I want to take the subjects on alternate basis so that you get time to comprehend the lectures. But this is in continuity with the yesterday's class. Reason being that this chapter is not over yet. So what we did yesterday is actually we discussed various features of federalism. What is federalism, what is its definition, what are the features, how it is being practiced all around the world, and different features of federalism which are there in India. Today we have to talk about how this federalism is practiced in India, because having laws of power sharing is good, but actually how we practice federalism is more important, because laws of power sharing are there. But if actual people who are under the law are not doing it, then the whole concept of federalism basically cannot succeed. So, federalism having constitutional provisions is not necessary, is not entirely sufficient. Reason being that constitutional provisions are there in our constitution, but the success of Indian federalism is attributed to the democratic politics that we have practiced in our country for last 75 or more years. So the success of Indian federalism is not only the result of the provisions and the clear laws that are there in our constitution, but it is also a result of the democratic politics that we have practiced over the last three quarters of a century, like 75 years. Now, these ideals have played a major role in the success of federalism in India. And one of that major features, one of the few features or few features have been discussed in the book. The one is linguistic state. Now, one of the major tests of Indian democracy, one of the major tests of Indian democracy came in the very first year, or you can say the first 3 4 years of our independence, 47 48, was the how to share power. So when we talk about constitution, it is clear that constitution, when the constitution was drafted, it was clear that we are going to have the concept of states. Now the most important question was how to create those states, because as you all know that India follows the concept of holding together federalism, as we discussed in the last class. So under this holding together mechanism, what should be the criteria to define the boundaries and how to create states? And one of the major tests of our democratic politics in India was the creation of linguistic states. Because when we talk about state creation and when we talk about the creation of linguistic states, one would say that it will certainly lead to, it will not lead to unity, because if everyone is speaking different languages and if they are following their culture, then how are we going to create a unified country? But that is not true in case of India. And so when if you look at the political map of 1947 and then you look at the political map of India in 2023, you will find different changes. So the states that we see today, they were not there at that time. There were different regions, different attributions of areas, but now they have culminated into different states. Many old states have vanished. Many new states have been created. Boundaries and names of states have been changed. So if you see in 1947, several old states were were there in India, and they were changed to form new states. Now, one of the reasons for state creation was to ensure that everybody feels part of the process. Now, foremost challenge that was there in front of our leaders at that point of time was how to decide the states should be created. What will be the mechanism? So there were like, should we make states as per administrative convenience, or we look at the economic balance, or should we give importance to culture and languages? So there were many regions in India. They were demanding their own states based on their culture and language. Now the question in front of the government was how to accept this demand by keeping in mind the administrative and economic convenience of the country, as well as the foremost duty of the government to maintain the unity. So initially government did uh, at that point of time did not accept the demand of linguistic states, but over the period of time they did. After the State Reorganization Commission was made under the leadership of Fazl Ali. After the Fazl Ali's Commission's recommendations and the Seventh Constitutional Amendment of 1956, we do see states being formed on the basis of languages. But language, it was not done in order to uh, fulfill the demands of the people solely, but it was also done in order to preserve the diversity of India. So, by creating linguistic states, what the leaders did, or what the early governments did, is that they ensured that people were part of the process. But it was not only the language on the basis of which we have created the states. There are also different reasons for creating a states. States have been created in India on the basis of culture, ethnicity, geography. If you look at the states like Nagaland, Uttarakhand, Jharkhand, they are not solely the states because of the language. There are other factors also. So by seeing at the kind of state reorganization or state formation process that we have followed over a period of time, you can say that we have uh, we have practiced the concept of federalism in a sense that it has made us both diverse in character as well as united. Although when we read our history, and when we go back in time, like the period immediately after the independence, you will find that there were some of the leaders who feared that it would lead to disintegration of country if we talk about having states based on languages. So central government did resist it for some time, but actually in experience over the period of time with the creation of linguistic states, we have seen that country is more united, and it has also made our administration a little easier, because having a conversation with the person with whom the government is dealing in their own language is much easier than creating a system where the population does not know the language. So the experience of our linguistic states is not that bad, or I would say it is not bad at all, because by giving respect to the regional diversity, regional culture, and the language, because language, culture are basic attributes of the human civilization. So by giving respect to them, actually government has created an atmosphere where people are not bothered about anything other than their culture and everything, and that is why it is easier for us to get united. Because when we see India is not a traditional country. If you look at other countries, other contemporaries of ours, there is a distinct definition of being a country, be it culture, be it language, be it race, or be it religion. But we as India, uh, we have a very distinct identity. We cannot have we have a culture which is Indian. It is not related to any particular region, it is not related to any particular race, or it is not related to any particular religion. We have our own culture. And that culture is Indian because we have so many attributes related to that culture. That is the beauty of having such democratic politics where people are given importance. Their culture is being given importance, and this is the sense of unity and equality that we are being practicing for last 75 years. in our federal system. Now, the second question after the linguistic state is, what is the language policy does India have? Unlike Sri Lanka, we are not having a language policy which is imposing in character. So our constitution does not give any status to one language as a national language. Although Hindi was identified as an official language, but Hindi is a mother tongue of only 40% Indians. Therefore, it was needed at that point of time that we had to protect our languages. And that is why our constitution recognized along with Hindi 21 other languages which are there in the 8th schedule. So candidate who is precisely going to give exam for any post in central government has the option to opt out of those 22 languages including Hindi. So he does not feel alienated. So India does not follow the concept of majoritarianism. That okay, fine, 40%, it is a large chunk of the population who speaks one language, therefore the other 60% which are divided into different languages must follow them. It is not there. And second important thing is that states also have their own official language, so it is easier for them to administrate at the local level, because there they do not have to bother about how people are going to react or whether people are going to understand it. Unlike Sri Lanka, where the leaders of the country adopted a very populist approach and they decided, okay, fine, 74% of the people speak one language, let's go with that. Our leaders in our country were very cautious about it. So the attitude of our leaders at the national level of spreading Hindi is very cautious. So according to the constitution, we have English as our official language for our official purpose. Although it was to stop in 1965, but since then we are still using English as our official language, second official language. Reason being that at that point of time, when the time came to end the use of English, many states, especially the southern states of India, they did question the concept, because they were still working in their mother tongues, and English was the language of communication for them to communicate at the national level. So it is important for India. So it is important for Indian government that we form a policy where we are promoting Hindi rather than imposing Hindi, and that is what government is doing. So if you look at the language policy that we have, the official policy of government of India is not imposing Hindi everywhere. Of course, government of India has the duty to promote Hindi because Hindi is one of the major language in India, but it is not being done at the cost of not promoting the other languages. And that is the reason that the flexibility shown by the political leaders in India have helped us in avoiding the situation of, let's say, Sri Lanka in itself. The kind of the linguistic problems that Sri Lankan administration is facing, or the people of Sri Lanka are fighting, have fought for a long time on the basis of this regional and cultural differences, that has not been witnessed in India. And one of the reasons for this is that our government is very flexible. So we are giving importance to everyone's language, everyone's culture, and that is why we are able to create such a great democratic nation. Because if you look at the attributes of modern nations, we do not have any single language, we do not have any single religion, we do not have any single race. Still, we are one of the largest democracies in the world. We are sovereign, independent, united in a country, and that is what India is all about. So Indian federalism is actually a great experience and an experiment to a certain extent. We do not fit into the modern nations theory or the concept of whole nationalism that was created in 18th and 19th century, to a certain extent in 20th century. See, the people who are like physically uh, alike should live together, or they have religion, they should form a nation or the culture. We neither have anything like that. Still, we are one of the greatest countries of the world. The reason being our flexibility and our patience and our acceptability, that we do not discriminate on the basis of the modern attributes of discrimination, and it is categorically given in our constitution also, that in India, every individual shall be given equal respect, equal opportunity, and no one shall be discriminated on the basis of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or even language. And that kind of flexibility has empowered our system. The third important aspect of our the federalism in India is the central state relations. Now, the central state relations, there is two things. Number one, it is categorically written in our constitution. The second thing is that over the period of time, the central state relations have changed in practice. So, for a long period of time, India had a single party rule. Like for the first 20-30 years of Indian independence or Indian uh, democratic history, we had a single party rule. The same party ruled in both states at the center. This meant that state government does not exercise their rights autonomously as federal units, because same party was ruling at the center as well as the states. Therefore, the policy making was almost same. And as and when the party at the state level tried to did do something which was not in consonance with the center used to undermine the powers of the state. In those days, central government did misuse the constitution to often dismiss the state government. The misuse of Article 356 is well documented in India, and it's still going on, but to a certain extent it has toned down, but still the misuse is still there. But all these things have changed post the economic reforms. If you see the politics in 19 after 1990, you have seen that there is a consistent rise of regional parties in India, and this has also led to a beginning of coalition era. Coalition era means that no single party has the power to make government. They are not able to secure majority in Lok Sabha. That means the national parties have to get into alliance with the regional parties. That means they have to give some kind of freedom to them in their states to form their policies. This has led to a new culture where power sharing has been there, and there is a considerable amount of autonomy which is there with the state governments. That is why they're able to do their job. And this trend which you see right now is also supported by major judgments of the Supreme Court. I have already told you, in federalism, the independence of judiciary is very important, because without an independent judiciary, it is impossible to control the big brother, and that is in our case is the central government. So the major judgments of Supreme Court have made difficult for the central government to dismiss the state government in an arbitrary manner. You take the example of one of the state cases, SR Bombay versus Union of India, or you can also look at the other cases also, where the Supreme Court has categorically said that union cannot take away the powers of the state government without any valid reason. Therefore, power sharing is more effective today than it was in the early years, because with time the law has become matured, the people have also become matured, and the system has matured enough to respond to any of the misdeeds if conducted by any of the players, whether it's the state government or the central government. So it is very important when you read this chapter or when you go talk about federalism, the attributes are two. Number one, what are the features? What are the written documents which are there? But the second most important thing is, how are we going to practice it? Because having a law written down and having law practiced do two different things. So fortunately in India, we have a very robust federal system. And it is not only because of the constitutional provisions, but also due to the experiments and the experiences that we had in last 75 years of dealing with the people coming from different backgrounds. And the system that we have created, it is more on the side of Belgium system, that we are giving the respect that the people demand, and the people should have by sharing power. We are giving that equal respect. and that is what makes us one of the countries in the world which, although does not uses the federalism in word, but we are a federal country in principle. If you read our constitution, federalism is a word which is not available anywhere. In the first article of your constitution says India, that is Bharat, shall be the union of states. It nowhere says Federal Republic of India. It always says Union of India. But still, we are a federal country because we follow the principles of federalism in practice. It may not be written down in an explicit language, but we are a federal country. So that is the beauty of our constitutional principles. So there is a task for you if you want to learn the linguistic diversity of India. You can go through it, and there is a separate when we talk about this linguistic division and states and union territories properly in the concept of constitution, जो हम कंपटीशन के लेवल पे जब हम बुक से बाहर जब हम स्पेसिफिकली कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के लिए बात करेंगे आने वाले कुछ दिनों में, तो उसमें आपका एक टॉपिक है स्टेट रीऑर्गेनाइजेशन। तो उसमें मैं आपको बताऊंगा कि लिंग्विस्टिक स्टेट्स का फॉर्मेशन कैसे हुआ। इसमें आप धार कमीशन के बारे में पढ़ेंगे, जेवीपी कमेटी है, फिर उसके बाद आपका द whole movement for unified Andhra. And for your information, Andhra is the first linguistic state created in India. And what happened after that, how the 1956 amendment came up, and how these states were merged. And from there on, if you look at it, 1966, Punjab was divided into Haryana and Punjab. 1960, Gujarat and Maharashtra. So these all are state formations. Some are linguistic, some are administrative, some are cultural. Now, the last topic of your chapter in this chapter is decentralization. Now, what do you call decentralization? So, when power is taken away from a central and the state government, it is being given to the local government, it is called decentralization. Now, if you look at India, we have states with huge population in terms of population. If you look at UP, Uttar Pradesh currently has a population that if we take it as a separate country, UP will be the fifth most populous country in the world. It has more people than Russia. It has 4 times the population of Germany. Take UP, you take Haryana and Delhi. They have more population than United Kingdom. And many of these states are internally diverse also. So if you look at the diversity in India, it is not only the diversity which you see at the state level. There is local diversity also. Many states are divided on the basis of the culture and the dialects they spoke. If you come from UP, you know that the kind of Hindi that is being spoken in Western UP is totally different from the Bundelkhand area, totally different from the Central UP where we speak more or less Avdi and Urdu. And then you travel to Eastern UP, you will find Hindi changing its dialect. There we see Bhojpuri, we see Banarsi Hindi. Then you travel to Bihar, and Bihar has different dialects, Maithili, Santhali. So there is a internal diversity. Again, if you look at more of the states in India, they have this local diversity. If you go to Rajasthan, the kind of languages and the culture they follow, I mean, the area of desert, the Jaisalmer and Jodhpur, they have a different setup. Udaipur zone, southern Rajasthan has a different setup. Similarly, if you go to any Indian state, 90% times if you are traveling in different parts of the same state, you will find that there are differences in the culture. So in order to properly share power, what we needed was that we had to had a third tier of government. Because we have to channelize that power at the local level. It is not enough just to have center and state because of the diversity. And because of such a huge population, just like center is not able to deal with all the people on its own, that is the same reason that states are also not able to even manage their whole population, because that population is almost big as a country if you look in the international scale. So decentralization is a process where the power has been taken from the central government and the state government, and it is being localized. The basic idea is there are large number of problems which can be settled at the local level. There is no need for an administration to look at the state level or at the national level. There are problems, very, very localized problems. And the people who are living there, or the people who are being affected by those problems, have the best ways to counter it. And besides, it is possible for us to have a democratic model where people can participate at the local level. So it in return will create a democratic awareness, participation, where people are not only participating for the state and national decisions, but they are doing it from the local level. That is the best way in which one can realize its responsibility and improve the principle of democracy. And this being done in our country by having a third tier of government that we call panchayats and municipalities. So our constitution did talk about panchayats and municipalities, but the power was given to the states, and it was not a standardized practice. I mean, it was left to the states to have their own local government setup. But in order to we have a decentralized system at the nationwide level and have it properly channelized, we take giant steps in the year 1992 when the constitution was amended. And by 73rd and 74th amendment of our constitution, we introduced Panchayati Raj system and the municipality system throughout India at the national level, and it became a constitutional authority. It was no longer the option for the state to have a municipality or a panchayat. It has to happen. Now it is constitutionally mandatory to have that third tier of democracy. So whether you are in Kashmir, whether you are in Nagaland, Arunachal, or whether you are in Tamil Nadu, everywhere you will find that third tier. And every 5 years they are holding elections. Whether it is for the panchayat or the block panchayat or the district zilla parishads or for municipality or municipal corporation. Then, in order to have the participation of the local people without any hindrance, seats are also reserved in those bodies for SCs and STs and backward classes. And for the first time in this third tier, we have a one-third seat reservation for the women. That means at least one-third local leaders will come from female gender to ensure proper participation of everyone. And that is one of the longest pending demands in India, that this one-third reservation should be there in the state as well as the parliamentary level, so that 50% of the Indian population should have a say in the decision making. Because on its own, the women participation is rising, but is rising at a very slow pace. We should have a proper women participation in the government. So that women reservation bill is one of the longest pending demands in Indian legislative history and still going on. And in order to ensure that these local governments are independent and they are working as per the prerogatives given by the constitution, there is an independent institution. So every state have a election commission that has been specifically created in each state to conduct these panchayats and municipal elections. You must, if you have seen one of my videos where we talk about elections of the president and the parliament, I have told you that panchayats and municipalities के elections स्टेट इलेक्शन कमीशन कराता है. ये इलेक्शन कमीशन ऑफ इंडिया नहीं कराता, और ये स्टेट इलेक्शन कमीशन बनाए ही गए 1992 में. हर स्टेट का अपना एक होता है, उसका काम है पंचायत एंड म्यूनिसिपैलिटीज के इलेक्शंस कराना. और ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली लिख दिया गया है कि स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स की जिम्मेदारी है कि वो अपने पावर्स और रेवेन्यूज इन लोकल गवर्नमेंट बॉडीज के साथ शेयर करें. कैसे शेयर करेंगे वो स्टेट टू स्टेट डिपेंड करेगा, बट कॉमन पावर्स लिख दिए गए हैं. 11th and 12th schedule deals out with the powers and functions of panchayats and municipalities. 11th schedule talks about व्हाट इज द प्रेरोगेटिव ऑफ पंचायत, वो क्या क्या काम कर सकते हैं. 12th शेड्यूल टॉक्स अबाउट म्युनिसिपैलिटी जस्ट लाइक द यूनियन लिस्ट, स्टेट लिस्ट एंड कंकरेंट लिस्ट इन द 7th शेड्यूल. तो ये होता कैसे है, हर गांव में या ग्रुप ऑफ गांव में एक पंचायत होती है. उस पंचायत का, उस जनरल बॉडी का जो हेड होता है उसको हम पंच, सरपंच, प्रधान या प्रेसिडेंट बोलते हैं. सो द बेसिक यूनिट इन पंचायती राज इज ग्राम सभा. ग्राम सभा का ऑफिशियल डेफिनेशन होता है ऑल द एलिजिबल वोटर्स ऑफ अ विलेज, दे आर बीइंग डायरेक्टली इलेक्टेड, और उनका जो लीडर होता है उसको वो डायरेक्टली इलेक्ट करते हैं. सिमिलरली डिसीजन मेकिंग इसी तरीके से आपके शहरों में होती है. ठीक है. और जो पंचायत का सिस्टम है उसमें ये जो सिस्टम है ये विलेज लेवल से शुरू होता है और ये डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल तक जाता है. कैसे होता है, विलेज के लेवल पे होती है ग्राम सभा. ग्रुप ऑफ विलेजेस को मिला के, उस इलाके में जितने भी गांव होंगे उनको मिला के बनेगा ब्लॉक. वहां इसके लेवल पे होती है ब्लॉक पंचायत या पंचायत समिति, ब्लॉक मंडल, जो भी बोलेंगे. और एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट में जितने ब्लॉक्स होते हैं उनको मिला के बनती है जिला पंचायत. तो पंचायती राज सिस्टम जो है वो भी एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट तक फैला हुआ 3 लेवल का है. ठीक है. इसी तरीके से अर्बन बॉडीज होती हैं. अर्बन बॉडीज में ये 3 तरीके का डिवीजन नहीं होता. अर्बन बॉडीज में क्या होता है, अर्बन बॉडीज में होता ये कि जितना भी इलाका एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट में अर्बन एरिया में आता है उस इलाके को पॉपुलेशन के अकॉर्डिंग वार्ड में बांट दिया जाता है. जैसे गांव होते हैं वैसे शहरों में वार्ड होते हैं, ग्राम सभा होती है वैसे ये वार्ड होते हैं. हर वार्ड से एक एक मेंबर इलेक्ट किया जाता है. वहां उस वार्ड में रहने वाले लोग अपना अपना वार्ड मेंबर इलेक्ट करते हैं. जैसे गांव में रहने वाले लोग अपना अपना प्रधान इलेक्ट करते हैं. इनको मिला के बनती है म्युनिसिपल कॉरपोरेशन या म्युनिसिपैलिटी. और जो इनका लीडर बनता है वो चेयरपर्सन होता है, और जो ऑफिसर होता है उसको मेयर बोलते हैं. इनका काम क्या है, इनका काम है अपनी म्युनिसिपैलिटी या अपने जिला परिषद में या अपने ब्लॉक पंचायत में या अपने गांव की सभा, गांव में जो प्रधान है वहां के लोगों का ध्यान रखना. वो कैसे काम कर रहे हैं, वो क्या कर रहे हैं, उनकी क्या प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, क्या क्या चीजें हैं. सो दिस लोकल गवर्नमेंट इज प्रिसाइसली फॉर लोकल नीड्स. गांव में सड़क है कि नहीं है, गांव में लोगों के पास मेडिकल सुविधा है कि नहीं है, गांव में स्कूल है कि नहीं है, स्कूल में बच्चों को किताबें मिल रही है कि नहीं मिल रही, बेसिक चीजें. सिमिलरली शहरों में वार्ड में सफाई हो रही है कि नहीं हो रही, रोड लाइट जल रही है कि नहीं जल रही, वार्ड के पार्क में माली है या नहीं है, अ, लोगों को जो सुविधाएं हैं म्यूनसिपैलिटी की वो मिल रही हैं कि नहीं मिल रही, कूड़ा टाइम से उठ रहा है कि नहीं उठ रहा है, लोगों के सेफ्टी है कि नहीं है, सिक्योरिटी है कि नहीं है. ये सारी चीजें जो लोकल लेवल की आपकी जरूरत है. टाइम से पानी की सप्लाई आ रही है कि नहीं आ रही है, घर के सामने की सड़क खराब तो नहीं है, पानी तो नहीं भर जाता, बारिश से पहले साफ सफाई हुई है कि नहीं हुई है, बारिश से पहले पेस्टिसाइड्स का स्प्रे हुआ है कि नहीं हुआ ताकि मॉस्किटोज की ब्रीडिंग ना हो. ये सारी चीजें आपकी लोकल जरूरतें हैं. तो उसके लिए हमारे पास ये लोकल सिस्टम है. दिस इज कॉल्ड लोकल सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट, जो हमारे यहाँ 3rd टियर में दिया गया है. सो इंडियन फेडरलिज्म is a combination of 3 levels of government. First, working at the national level, represented by the parliament. Second, working at the state level, represented by the state legislative assembly. Third, represented by the local level, consisting of panchayats and municipalities. So with this, we come to an end to this topic of federalism as per the class 10th NCERT. There are lots of attributes to federalism which we will discuss in detail when we talk about it in the context of the constitution. जो है ये चैप्टर आपके पॉलिटिकल साइंस के प्रिपरेशन का बेस बनाता है. Obviously, it is good if any one of you is in 10th class, but it is the base on which you are going to build your other substantive knowledge about the federal structure in India. So this is all for today. If you have any questions, if you want to ask any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, this is all for today, and you can leave your questions in the chat box. I'll be happy to answer all your questions. And tomorrow we'll be starting with something new. So let's meet tomorrow again at the same time. Roughly Indian time will be 9 o'clock in the evening. So let's meet tomorrow and continue our discussions. We'll pick some other interesting topic for you. So this is all for today. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. Please like and subscribe our channel and share with other students also. That is how we are going to build a strong student community at DFA. And leave your questions in the chat box or in the comment section so that I'll answer them whenever I get time. Thank you all and have a nice evening. Good night. Jai Hind.